Today, I'd like to share about how to see if a property is already under contract, even if it's listed as active in Trulia, Realtor.com, Zillow, and many other public websites. So I've already shared about some other things that are important to consider that are not just on the listing itself through various websites. Like I said, I've shared about flood zones and looking at those through the Matrix portal. I've also shared about looking at a property for crime with Trulia, ballpark area values through Zillow, and getting a visual representation through Google Maps on this video. But today, again, I'd like to focus more on seeing if a property is actually under contract or not, even if it's listed as active on some of these websites. So I've got this example, 5056 Town Point Road in Suffolk, Virginia, and it's listed as for sale, as you can see here on Trulia. And then if we go to Realtor.com, it's also listed as for sale. That's shown by where it says active here. Now, in the case of Realtor.com, they're not explicitly saying it's for sale, but by saying it's active and posting it and not saying that it's under contract, they're kind of giving you the idea that it is for sale. And then also Zillow.com, it again says for sale. And with none of these three websites was I able to find anything about it being under contract, it being contingent, or any sort of language like that. But the reality is that it is under contract. And I'd like to show you how to see that if you found it on some sort of public website. If you were getting the feed for a search from an agent such as myself, we would likely be excluding active contingent properties, with a few exceptions, like if there was a 3-day kickout clause, something like that in some cases. But for the most part, we would be excluding contingent properties from your search if you were to set up a search with us. And about 90% of properties are going to be on the local MLS, at least in Hampton Roads. There are some places where that's not the case, where they are more reliant on for sale by owners, but for the most part, 90% in most areas, I would say. And so we're looking on my website, and the best way to exclude them is by giving, shifting your criteria with your agent for what the different things are that you're looking for in a house. Because all the time I have a situation where a buyer has properties that would be in a search, but because they've expanded their search beyond what they initially told me, it doesn't come up in that search. And so it is important to communicate with your agent about how you want the search to be revised, expanded, narrowed down, and just stay in communication. But at the same time, like I said, there are still some properties, even though it's a small percentage, that are not even on MLS. So especially in those sort of situations, it's important to do your homework in various regards. But right now, I'm just going to be going over a way on MLS to see if a property is active but contingent in the real estate information network that's the main MLS system of Hampton Roads. So I'm going to be first going to this website here that is the public page for you to do your own search. Now, the search here is not nearly as extensive as the search that I have available as an agent, because this one is available to the public. You don't have to pay anything for it, whereas I, as an agent, you've got some pretty hefty fees in order to be able to search and input listings into the MLS on an annual basis. So what we're going to do is just basically replicate these searches here for 5056 Town Place, I believe, Town Point. So 5056 Town Point. And We see it here as active, but that's not the end of the story, as you'll see. So we go down and we look at contingencies. Now, if there aren't any contingencies, then you won't even see a contingencies line. But because there are contingencies, you do. You see that it has this home EIFS inspection contingency. That means it's under contract. Any contingencies it has means it's under contract. Now, if you have a 3-day kickout clause or something along those lines among contingencies, then that's actually good news, because even if it is under contract, you might be able to essentially kick out the current buyer who has it under contract with the seller by putting in a superior offer. And if the other buyer doesn't have something even better than what they initially had, then the seller has the ability to kick them out in 3 days and put you in to be under contract with you instead of that initial buyer. But in most cases, that's not going to be the case, such as in this case, where the only thing you see is the home/EIFS inspection contingency. Now, most people know what a home inspection is, but a lot of people don't know what EIFS is. EIFS is exterior insulation and finishing system. And for that, it's an additional inspection on top of the home inspection. And EIFS is basically, it looks like stucco, except if water gets in it, it can create tons of problems. And so if there's any sort of cracks in the EIFS and it's not immediately remedied, then you can have big damage, basically. And so that's because of all the problems, because of the high costs involved, they have an additional EIFS inspection. And so that's basically it. It's just a matter of, once you found some property wherever, then look on the REIN MLS if you're in Hampton Roads, or if you're in another area, your agent might have another MLS system where they can potentially give you a public website. Now, all MLS systems do not have a public website like this. In some cases, you will need to contact your agent. For instance, Williamsburg MLS does not have a public website that I can give to buyers. And that's even though it's in Hampton Roads. Williamsburg MLS is a little bit different, because even though REIN MLS covers Williamsburg, you have Williamsburg MLS as well, and sometimes properties in REIN are not in Williamsburg MLS, even if they're both in actually Williamsburg. So hope that's helpful. And also, if you have any questions, it's very good to contact your agent about potential properties, and knowing that if a property is listed as active, it might not actually be active, but it does depend on your MLS, because Williamsburg MLS, for instance, as soon as a property comes under contract, it's listed as contingent. So it would not be listed if you're in an MLS zone where the property is just listed in an MLS where properties that are contingent immediately become pending, then you're not going to have this problem. But in Hampton Roads, it's a big problem because of just the policy that REIN MLS has for a property where it'll be under contract but still be listed as active. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me in a comment, call, email. Adam Garrett, 757-879-9651, or agarrett@ggrva.com. Hope that was helpful.